You're a historian, as you said earlier. This has been going on now for over 70 years, this conflict.
Yeah.
It flares up every few years, it seems, with some new form of hideous warfare. When you chart back to the very start of all this, which many people are trying to do to try to explain how we've reached this place, was the big mistake in the first place the displacement of several 100,000 Palestinians?
People, for instance, talk a lot these days, and for many years, and for good reasons, about the suffering of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who lost their homes in 1948. Few people know that as a result of the 1948 war, also hundreds of thousands of Jews lost their homes in retaliation for the war. Jewish communities all over the Middle East, in Arab countries, in Egypt, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Syria, who lived there for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years, and had nothing to do with the war. They were driven out. Hundreds of thousands of Jews, the largest group of people now living in Israel are Jews that were expelled as refugees as a result of the 1948 war. Now, does this justify what happened to the Palestinians? No. Does this justify the Israeli occupation and the mistreatment of Palestinians there? Absolutely not. And we shouldn't use historical injuries to justify more injuries. If you have to choose between justice and peace, choose peace. Every peace treaty in the history of the world was based on compromise. No, we need some level of justice, of course, but there is never a possibility of absolute justice. If you pursue absolute justice, you will only perpetuate war indefinitely.
Most people believe there can be no peace deal with Hamas, given the appalling terror attacks of October the 7th. But many people also feel, including many Israelis I've talked to, believe there can't be any peace deal as long as Bibi Netanyahu remains in charge of Israel. Do you share that view? Do you think that, well, for many reasons. One, his attack earlier in the year on the judiciary, on the integrity of the Supreme Court, the social unrest that caused, the division in Israel, perhaps even distracted his defense and intelligence people away from what they should have been doing, which may have contributed to the way Hamas was able to execute this attack. For all these reasons, do you think it would be prudent for Israel to find new leadership?
Absolutely. I mean, Netanyahu has been ruling Israel for most of the last 14 years. He has based his political career on dividing the nation against itself. He has weakened any state institution, including the security forces, that might challenge or limit his authority, as he recently tried to do to the courts and especially to the Supreme Court. And this is the deep cause of the dysfunction of many governmental systems, not only on the day of the attack, but ever since then. If Netanyahu really cared about the state of Israel, he should have just taken responsibility for the disaster and resigned and allowed the Israeli people to come together at this very difficult time. Alternatively, if he thinks he's the only one that can manage this crisis, then he should have said, okay, I'm calling an election in 6 months, and then I will resign and take responsibility for what has happened.